I hope and pray that this finds you well physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, but above all, physically. Everyone who may be suffering from coronavirus should have a complete and speedy refuah shlema in a way that lechatchila le'osim alecha, as if it never happened. The Eibishter should protect us all, b'teich Klal Yisrael, and b'teich all people on this earth from this epidemic, from this magefa, and it should come to an immediate end, totally eradicated. As I said, in a way that we should only experience the growth that came from it and not any of the negative. Meanwhile, we have to be doing everything possible as the Torah prescribes, both physically, medically, health-wise, to follow what doctors are stating, to follow what Rabbonim are saying. And together with that, simultaneously, like every battle, is fought on two fronts. The first and foremost is on the physical and health front, to make sure that you and everyone is protected from this very contagious virus. At the same time, there's also the Ruchniisdik battle that we fight, which is to strengthen and fortify our neshamas, our betochen, our trust. And that includes learning Torah. Torah mevia refuah le'elam. Torah brings healing to the world. And the reason for that is very simple. Because the Eibishter is Takel Baraisa Bara Alma, that God looked into the Torah as a blueprint and created the world. And the Torah is the blueprint. Pisrois, a Picassois, like an architect has a blueprint. So every aspect of existence, including the health of every individual, created in the divine image. The health of every aspect of existence is also part of that blueprint. So when you learn that blueprint, what it does is, it brings healing to the physical world. But at the same time, the same Eibishter said that healing also is nitn reshus l'refa l'rapis, v'rapa yerapele. To heal, I'm also giving you methods that are embedded in the natural, so-called natural order and laws of existence, of medicine, to do whatever is necessary. But at the same time, we never forget the blueprint. The blueprint brings healing to the world. So learning Torah, especially in this time, is also bringing refuah. And that is the reason that even as we are quarantined and told to stay home, we don't stop our mitzvah of learning limud HaTorah, which is a chiyuv timidi. It's a constant mitzvah. And that is why, from my humble end, and I'm sure so many others are doing it as well, I offer many different new programs and classes, including this one. You can go to chassidussupply.com and find plenty of material, as well as meaningfullife.com/corona, where we've created a special section, constantly are being updated. I also started a new daily short video called Your Daily Spiritual Antidote, in this same spirit, which you can find in these places. You can subscribe to it, comment and feedback, as well as an array of other classes and programs that will be coming and that have already been taught and are online that you can easily access. And may, as the Rebbe said, and I quoted last sikha that I talked, the last class I gave in the sikha last week, the Rebbe said in Yud Aleph Nisan Tov Shem Mem Beis, and similarly Zeitz Chanukah Tov Shem Mem Vov, that Torah mevia refuah le'elam, that when there's a new disease, we need a new remedy, including new learning and new commitments to learning through Torah, which brings healing to the world. And with that, as an introduction, let us go to the sikha, the talk of the Rebbe that I will be teaching today, and that is a very classic and powerful sikha that the Rebbe edited, delivered on Shabbos Parshas Vayikra, Hey Nisan Tovshin Mem Zayin, 33 years ago, in the year 1987, and the Rebbe Magi it. It's printed in Sefer HaSichos Tovshin Mem Zayin, page 370, volume 1, page 370. You can find the PDF on our site, chassidusapplied.com/eternity, where this program is being broadcast. You can find the PDF of that, as well as on the YouTube, as well as on the other platforms where this is being broadcast. And the Rebbe, in addition, which I'll explain in a moment, also instructed that week that Likutei Sichos, Vadlafotze Sichos, which would give out each week a special likud. This was the fresh Farbrengen that Rebbe edited then in Tafshim Mem Zayin. They would prepare a likud, which would be a collection of sichos that the Rebbe had delivered in the previous years. So they had prepared something, and the Rebbe said to take this sicha and translate it. It was then coming out in Hebrew, and they translated it into Hebrew, so you can find that in Likutei Sichos now. It was published then in a likud, an individual kuntres, an individual publication booklet. And then now it's published in volume 32 in Likutei Sichos, page 19. The same sicha, word for word, translated into Hebrew. That's how precious this sicha appeared to be to the Rebbe. So a little background about the sicha, and then we'll of course learn it inside, and its lessons to our lives, especially today. So the background is that Rebbe delivered the sicha, that Shabbos Parsha Vayikra, but a little context. Tafshim Mem Zayin, as we all know, was the year when Hey Tevis, which would be just a few months before Nisan Tevis, was when the psak came down, out the verdict came from the court that the Sfarim of the library belonged to Agudas Chassidic Chabad. And of course, by the Rebbe, this was a major battle and a major victory, Didan Notzach. And the Rebbe, of course, Hey Tevis, and the following days celebrated. This was discussed by many during that period in time, and over the years. A few months later, the Rebbe continued the theme of, which was the essence of the court case, was what? Was the question of the eternity and the perpetuity of the Rebbe, his relationship with Chassidim, and his relationship with his chafetzim, his material, his books, and his objects, and his belongings. The question was a simple question. Is the Rebbe a private citizen, and therefore his belongings belong to his family, like every heir inherits their parents' or grandparents' property? Or is this a different category? And the psak was it's a different category, because the Rebbe, as the Rebbe Tzil Chaim Mushkis said clearly, which became the defining factor that determined the verdict, was when they asked her the question, do these books belong to your father or to the Chassidim? And she responded, to the Chassidim, because the Rebbe himself, my father himself, meaning the Frierdiker Rebbe, belonged to Chassidim, which established a whole new category. That he's not a private citizen, and therefore, a private citizen, when his life comes to an end, it comes to an end, and then his property moves on to his children, his grandchildren. But a Rebbe is not a private citizen. He belongs to the Chassidim. In the language of Halacha, it's Sibur Ein Emes. It's eternal. He is eternal. Through his teachings, where his entire soul and being is invested, including his belongings, his furniture, and which we'll be discussing through this sikha that the Rebbe talks about. And that lives on because the Chassidim live on. Mazare b'chaim afu b'chaim. So the theme of eternity, it lies at the essence of Hey Tevis and lies at the essence of this sikha. And in a fascinating way, the Rebbe, in his inimitable way, illuminates for us something that was always there in Yiddishkeit. The saying of the Nasi. We say the Nasi, beginning Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is tonight, tomorrow. We begin to say the Nasi. Every day, we say from Parshas Nasi, which is the dedication and the offerings that each head of a tribe, the Nasi of Avi Shevet, presented, Nachshon ben Aminadav, and so on. Each Nasi of each Shevet. And we say that now in our everyday. And the Rebbe will illuminate for us in this sikha its significance and how it lives on and why is it so important. In addition to connecting it to central theological and philosophical themes in Torah and in Yiddishkeit and Bechlal, and specifically illuminated through Chassidus. So this is a very unique sikha, something you don't find often. The Rebbe talking openly about this theme of the power of a Nasi, what a Nasi is, the eternity of a Nasi, and especially connecting it, which makes it even more Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence, with Beis Nisan, which is this Friday, second after Rosh Chodesh, Beis Nisan, the 100th Yartzeit, Stalkus from the Rebbe Rashab in Tofresh Pei, Tofshin Pei. And of course, also the first day of the Nesius of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Uba Hashemesh v'zorach Hashemesh. Frierdiker Rebbe assumed leadership as soon as the Stalkus of the Frierdiker of the Rebbe Rashab. And the Sikha as a cornerstone of the Sikha is the events that happened 100 years ago, including the Maimer that was delivered by the Frierdiker Rebbe, which was the same Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab delivered his last Maimer on Purim, Tofresh Pei, and by the Frierdiker Rebbe was delivered the last day of Shiva, after the Istalkus, and in it carries the theme of this eternity, and explaining it in a very profound, but also very practical way. So however you look at it, the Sikha is fundamental. And fundamental as well to us, being that the Chedesh Nisan, of course, a few days later, comes Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday, the Nasi of the Deir HaShvi's birthday. So you have the Rebbe Rashab, Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe. As the Rebbe says in different places, Miyad. Rosh Tevis, you have Miyad Menachem, Yosef and Yitzchok, and Dave Ber. Rosh Tevis of the three Rabbeim, the 5th, 6th, and 7th Chabad Rabbeim. So though the Rebbe doesn't say it explicitly, but it's implicit, especially for Chassidim, when you learn the Sikha and see the power of the Nasim, in this beginning of the month of Nisan. Now, to add a little gishmak, a little spice, if you wish, when the Rebbe was Magiyah the Sikha, we were all extremely excited because it was a Sikha that's very fundamental in the concept of understanding eternity, Nitzchiyas, Rebbe, eternity on earth, the immortality of Anosi. But then something interesting happened. The Rebbe was Magiyah the Sikha, and we of course prepared it for publication. I had the schus to write the Sikha and prepare it, include the Rebbe's edits, quite extensive edits. And then the Rebbe gave a directive, which was very uncommon, happened very rarely. Likutei Sichos is the series of Sichos where they take Likutei Sichos. If you look, you'll see it's a collection, not of the full-length Farbrengen that the Rebbe delivered, but a selection. It could be the Rashi, a Rambam, a Zoyar, a Hadran, sometimes an idea, a theme connected to Yom Tov. The Likut was made from that. That often was a collection from, could be one Sikha, it could be several Sikhas. And each week, that would be presented to the Rebbe was Magiyat. So that was its own Sidra, its own series. That became the volumes, the 39 volumes that we have today of Likutei Sichos. So that week, they prepared a Sikha, which was not necessarily from the recent Farbrengen. It could have been a Farbrengen a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, before they was published. The Rebbe told them to take this Sikha of Vayikra, Tov Mem Zayin, that had been Mugen now. The Likud went in the middle of the week. This already had been edited by the Rebbe, and to translate it into Hebrew, because they were coming then out in Hebrew, the Sichos, Likutei Sichos. So we have now the Sikha in the Yiddish version, which I'm going to be learning on page 370 in Sefer HaSichos Mem Zayin, Tov Mem Zayin, volume 1. And as I mentioned, Likutei Sichos Chelik Lamed Beis, volume 32, page 19 and on. And he edited it. But then something more extraordinary happened, which I thank God for in a way. People often ask me, did I ever get a compliment from the Rebbe? We definitely got critique. The Rebbe was a brutal editor. And I could tell you, I see it with Chesed Sheba Chesed, because the Rebbe trained us how the precision of writing, where sometimes you need gray area, not everything has to be black and white. Every footnote has to be meticulous. I have a very solid piece from beginning to end. Besides being a Rebbe, the Rebbe was also a major publisher, as we see. See his footnotes, how he edited, how he published. So we had to live up to that standard. So the question is, did the Rebbe ever give a compliment? So I never received a compliment. And I never asked for one, I never looked for one. I felt that the greatest compliment was the Rebbe was receiving and accepting what I presented, and the Rebbe edited it. What more compliment do you need than that? If he didn't want to edit it, he knew how to not edit it, and he knew how to criticize and say it's not worthy for publication. The fact that the Rebbe edited it, and for now for posterity, and all the Rebbe, the only name on it is the Rebbe's name. None of the manichim, none of us who wrote it down. That was the biggest compliment. But yet once on this Sikha, when it came out, Likutei Sichos, the Rebbe wrote, Higdilu Lases. It's a compliment that you did something great, you did a great job, basically. So I share it. It's not something I go around and advertise much, but I share it since we're learning the Sikha. I always wondered what that meant. Was it the way we wrote it? Was it structured well? Was it the theme itself, because it was such a fundamental theme? All the above. However you explain it, that was the Rebbe's expression, Igdilu Lases. So I wanted to mention that. That was the only compliment in direct words that I've ever received. And I take it with a full humility, not in any, God forbid, other way. And I share it because it adds to the power of this particular Sikha, which is one of the fundamentals and classics. So it's a great honor to share and to learn together this Sikha in Sefer HaSichos, Tov Shemem Zayin, Volume 1, page 370. And you can follow along. As I said, the PDF is up there on the screen. Just click on the link. You have a full PDF of this Sikha. So let's learn inside. Sikha Shabbos Parsha Vayikra, Hey Nisan, Hey Tov Shemem Zayin. That was the Kfiyas that year. And the Rebbe begins Sif Aleph. He begins with Megefinze Chitzder in the erste Tag von Chedesh Nisan, the Chazayin Spezielle Tag. We find ourselves now in the first days of the month of Nisan, which are unique days, special days, extraordinary days. The Mishkan in Midbar haben aufgestellt in dem ersten Tag von Chedesh Nisan. When was the Mishkan, the sanctuary? The portable sanctuary, when they left Mitzrayim and after Matan Torah they built the Mishkan. When was it erected? When was it first erected? So it was erected in the first day of Chedesh of the month of Chedesh Harishon, Chedesh Nisan. Like the Pasuk says in Pasha Pekudei, Beferish Mem Yuzayin. Und in the Tag von Chedesh bis Yud Beis Nisan, and those 12 days from the beginning of Nisan to the 12th of Nisan, which means right almost before Pesach, haben die Nesim von der Shvatim Makriv gewähnt jeden Tag, jeder sein Korban Chanukas am Mizbeach, Nossi Echad Liyem. So besides the Mishkan being established, something happened. In order to dedicate the Mishkan, the Eibishter commanded that what? In Parsha Nosei, Zayin Aleph Ve'elach, like he says, Zayin Yud Aleph Ve'elach, I'm sorry, said what? Each day, the head of the tribe, there were 12 tribes, from Reuven till Binyamin, the head of the tribe, each one brought their a korban for dedicating the temple, the altar, and the Beis and the Mishkan. Nasi Echad Yom, each day was dedicated one Nasi. Okay, that's what happened back then. The Rebbe, of course, is explaining what's unique about these days in the beginning of Nisan. Those are events back then, but it didn't remain an event in the past. The Rebbe is Hein der Minig, and therefore now we have the custom. As from Rosh Chodesh Nisan bis Yud Beis Nisan, that on the Rosh Chodesh Nisan till the 12th of Nisan, sagt man jeden Tag the Parsha in Teira. Von dem Korban Nossi HaShevet, at jenem Tag Makriv gewähnt for Chanukas HaMizbeach. That's why the custom is that each of these 12 days, we actually say the portion in Teira in Parsha Nosei that corresponds to the offering that the head of the tribe offered on that day for dedicating the altar of the temple. In the footnotes that Rebbe brings the Mar Mekemis, you see clearly it's Adin and Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch had Murazok and Erechaim, Siman Tov Chav Tes, Sif Tezvov, brings the source from the Shalah, and other sources. This is just as a footnote, important to emphasize that you see also the thoroughness. Everything is grounded, exact source. Nothing is just written. Just pointing that out. One of the things that stands out in all the Rebbe's Sichos is the grounding, and sometimes in the detail, every detail of the source, exactly all its nuances. Okay. Then in footnote 5, the Rebbe just indicates that there's also, what about Yud Gimel Nisan? So b'yem Yud Gimel Nisan, emnim ha'parsha d'zeis Chanukas Mazbeach, ad kei nosa asamenera. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes in Siddur. And what does that correspond to? The 12 Shvatim, the Shevet Levi. Like the Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch. So the 13th day was also, we say something, but there's more the Zeis Chanukas, that is the summation of the Nesiim. Okay. Und das ist der Tam, für was man sagt, nicht kein Tachnun in die Tag. So in addition to saying the Nasi, there's yet another way we mark this special 12-day period. We don't say Tachnun in these days. As he brings from Tur Shulchan Aruch. Interesting, just to mention, he brings there that the Alter Rebbe says that Minik Sfard is not to say. So the Rebbe says, Muchach Lema she'ena shel shar b'nei Yisrael. Not Minik Sfard, meaning Sfard L'afuke, to take away, meaning limiting that only custom of Sfardim to do it. Ki Siddur Morazok Nushav L'chol Nefesh. The Siddur is an equal for all Jews. Lo yirak l'Sfardim. U'mekolshkein avur ha'helchem b'drachiv ha'agorim b'medinoshe shel Morazok sherubim lo yihei Sfardim. And for sure, for those that followed the Alter Rebbe's ways and lived in his country, most of them were not Sfardim. So why did he write Minik Sfard? So the Rebbe doesn't answer. He just says, comes to add a specific emphasis. Here's not the place to elaborate. So it's interesting to wonder what the emphasis, but clearly it means for everyone. So we don't say Tachnun these days. So lib dem was the Nesiim ham demot makr gewen sehr karbonis. Why don't we say Tachnun? It marks because they brought their offerings, the leaders of the tribes. So you could ask what's the connection? So because the head of a tribe brought a carbon, but it was a Yom Tov for him. That's what the Alter Rebbe brings from Masechta Sofrim, footnote 7. So since it was a Yom Tov you don't say Tachnun. Und bald as the noch kommen die Tag from Pesach. Okay, so that explains why the first 12 days. What about the rest of the month? So of course, because afterwards comes Pesach. Kumtes as Reva Chedesh B'Kedusha. Most of the month is B'Kedusha, because you have the 12 days that was like each day a Yom Tov for the Nasi. Then you have Pesach, which of course is a Yom Tov. So even though there's still days left in Nisan that are not necessarily technically a holiday, because most of the month has this particular holiness. That's why we don't say Tach the Gans Chedesh Nisan. But what do we have now? Sif Aleph. We see that the days in the beginning of Nisan are special. Back in the time of the Yetzim Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt, it was special because that's when the temple was erected. And now following that, 12 days of offerings to dedicate the temple. And that's relevant today too. So it's special today too because we mark that in two ways. One, we say the Nasi each day. Number two, we don't say Tachnun. Even though it's a Nasi of only each tribe has one Nasi and it's a Yom Tov for him. But since it's a Yom Tov for him, all of us don't say Tachnun through all these days as we'll discuss later. So we come away with understanding the significance of this special part of the year. And of course the Rebbe in his classic style shows us the energy of the time period. This is the energy that we're entering now as we enter the Chedesh Nisan. So despite the challenges we're facing, at home, being at home, quarantined, the health challenges, we are living in special moments now. And we have to access it in the fullest sense of the word, as we'll soon see, not just access it, but access eternity through it. And when more do we need eternity than now? When Rahman al-Islam lives are being threatened. And people are being scared and frightened. So the nitzchis of Teira B'chlal, and especially the nitzchis of Nisim, as we shall learn, are going to help infuse us with strength and hope to get through this and to experience something immortal, eternal. Siv Beis. Was in dem in is for a chidush. Now in this that we just said, there's a chidush. Now you think, what's the chidush? I mean, we have many customs that we do, that we dedicate, we remember things that happened time of the Mishkan and so on. But the Rebbe is going to point out here now, there's a special chidush in marking and commemorating the saying of the Nasi each day that we don't find in other areas. So he's going to make a distinction between other ways that we make a zecher to the Nasi. Even though all events in Torah are eternal. He brings some Tanya Presh Perik Yud Zayin where it says Ateirehi Nitzchis, the Lashon. Everything is eternal. Every word, every iota, every letter, every narrative. Nevertheless, even though it's all eternal, we don't find that every event in Torah not everything that happened in Torah becomes something that we designate and mark, commemorate, something to be remembered forever for generations. Adarabah. On the contrary, there's only by a specific, limited number of things where we find that are foundations and fundamental principles in Judaism, that we find that there's such a thing that you mark something for generations. And the Rebbe says specifically, gives of course the biggest example of all, like remembering the Exodus from Egypt. As we know, we say it every day in the Sheish Schiris, the six remembrances. Zeichel Yitzis Mitzrayim is so fundamentally, it's so many different mitzvahs, so many different prayers. And of course Pesach, but not just Pesach, throughout the year. Why? Because it's a fundamental principle, a foundation in Yiddishkeit. Then the Rebbe gives another example. Und noch Zeichel HaMikdash. Another afterwards, Yitzis Mitzrayim was the earlier event. Things we do to remember the Beis HaMikdash. So we have many things that we do that are Zeicher to remind us of something that happened in the Beis HaMikdash. An example he doesn't bring, but Tefillah. Tefillah is connected to Midin Tiknum. Davening, according to one opinion, is connected to Midin that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's a Zeicher, it's recreating it based on the Mikdash and many, many other things. But Mikdash, but also concerning the Mikdash, the temple, the sanctuary, as important as the Beis HaMikdash is, which is where God rested, not everything that was done, every work done in the Mikdash became a Zeicher. So you could say, regarding things you did once in the Mikdash, you could say, okay, so though there are a number of things that were done more than once in the Mikdash, Meridamol, a number of times, still not everything that was done in the Mikdash was designated to become something that later for generations we do to remember. We can learn about it. We know it happened. But to say that it becomes something we do in action or a prayer, lav dafka. Not necessarily. But regarding the offerings of the leaders of the tribes, by the dedication of the altar, which is sometimes says Chanukas HaMizbeach, sometimes Chanukas HaMikdash or Mishkan. So it's reverse, it's interchangeable. But it's technically Chanukas HaMizbeach because it was offerings that were offered on the altar. We make a memory for generations. Next page. And a double commemoration, a double marking. Parshas HaNasi, and the Rebbe is going back to what he said in Sifal, through saying the Parsha of the Nasi, which we say every day, and by not saying Tachnun. So it's not just one thing. We could have done one thing. We could have said the Parsha, or just not say Tachnun. Would also have been a Zecher. Here you do a double Zecher. Bizle Meshach von a ganzen Chedesh. Meaning that the Tachnun extends, because of this, it causes most of the month to be B'Kedusha, and therefore we don't say Tachnun. So the Tachnun isn't just for those days, it causes the whole month to be a month of no Tachnun. That's the effect. So it's a double Zecher, and affects the entire month. Afal Pi, and the Rebbe, what's the Chiddush in this? Because first of all, the Chiddush is you don't find it in most things, as we mentioned. But here goes even more. Afal Pi was Aleph, Hakrabas Hanasim is given Gor, not an Einsekin Mal. Remember we said that in the Beis HaMikdash, there are things they did many times and we don't make a Zecher, we don't do something to remember it. Here, that Hakrabas Hanasim was only once because it was the dedication. This didn't happen every day. It wasn't an order part of the order to be then considered on the regular schedule in the temple, in the sanctuary, in the Mikdash, or the Mishkan, or the Mikdash, definitely not the Beis HaMikdash. It was a one-time thing. Und B is a second thing that makes it unique. Das ist getan geworden im Mishkan. It was only in the Mishkan, in the portable sanctuary. Was ist gewesen, nicht bloß koidem the mitzvah Golus. Not only was it before this Golus, because this Golus began after the Churban Bayesheni, after the destruction of the second temple. From the time of the Mishkan till then was many things that happened. Nor fardem Migdash Sheni, and far Golus Bovel, and fardem Migdash Rishon, exclamation point. So it was done in the Mishkan. It wasn't even done. If it was done in the space by Sheni, you could say, now that the Churban, we try to remember the last day of Samigdash. No, this takes us back all the way to the Mishkan. That was before Churban Bayis Sheni, Churban Bayis Rishon, and before Golus Bovel to the Migdash Rishon. And yet, we make a zecher for something that happened once and happened long before this Golus. In contrast to so many other things that we don't make a zecher. We don't do something, we don't say something, we don't do anything. Like in this case, we both say the Parsha and we refrain from saying Tachnun, both to remember and commemorate the offerings of the Nesiim. That's the Chiddush. That's the Chiddush. In a footnote, I just wanted to point out, when the Rebbe said at Svein Dike Zecher, in number 10, there's another Zecher we make. Chanukah. Nesef al Zecher zebimei Chanukah al dei Kriyas Parsha Nesiim. So why is that not mentioned? So the Rebbe says it's a Zecher Sheina Legamri. That's a completely different type of commemorating. From the mere fact that we only do it 8 days, we don't do 12 days. The last day we read from the 8th Nasi all the way till the end. So you see it has a different category. But it's still a Zecher. However, the Rebbe didn't bring it into the same category as Nissen. Fine. In footnotes 11 and 12, the Rebbe points out that the Tachnun, not saying Tachnun, even on Shabbos you don't say Tachnun, it affects of Arachmim Mitzidkos Tzedek. We don't say that. And in footnote 12, the Rebbe comes and adds another emphasis. Well, so what's the big thing about not saying Tachnun? It seems like a negative. You don't say Tachnun. So the Rebbe says, no, it's not just a negative. It has a positive in it. What is the positive? It's one of the Rebbe's chidushim that you find quite often in the Sichos, that when you don't do something, it means that you're not lacking Tachnun, you're getting what Tachnun has through another means. There's an inya chiyuvi by not saying Tachnun. Ki biyomim elu she'en emrem em Tachnun mashma, she'nimshachis az eisen amshachis v'ashpah, she'nimshachis biyom machim adei amiras Tachnun, k'meduber kama pamim. The fact that we don't say Tachnun means that, God forbid, how could you special days not say something that draws down blessings from heaven, that draws down forgiveness, or whatever Tachnun represents? So you have to say, you get all the amshachis, but you get them through the day itself and not through saying the Tachnun. So we see that not saying Tachnun has power to it. Besides the not saying, it also has power because you have everything that Tachnun accomplishes, except not through the Tachnun language and not through the Tachnun channel, so to speak. Because it's a day of Simcha. Okay. The Chiddush is noch größer, Siv Gimel. The Chiddush, the innovation here, is even greater. Alle Peulas und Tfilas v'zayin nach Zecher zu a gewisse Sach. All actions, all activities, and Tfilas and prayers, which are designated as a Zecher, as a commemoration, to remember a particular thing, Zecher Yitzias Mitzrayim, Zecher L'Mikdash, as the Rebbe indicated earlier, remembering what happened by Yitzias Mitzrayim, remembering the temple. Zayin nit a Zecher ba'alma. They're not just a remember, like, you do something to remember something that happened. Nor durch dem is me mamshech mal meile me ein von der Sach zu welche das is a Zecher. So, you can remember something that happened many years ago, and it's like you're marking it because it's a special thing. But it doesn't mean that special thing is happening now. He says, no. You actually draw down me'ein, similar to the energy, to the experience that happened back then. So it's not just a Zecher. Not just a day that marks. Just to point out, this is, of course, the central theme in Chassidus that Rebbe brings Hayom Me'elin Niskarim V'Nasim. By Purim, but all Yom Tevim. We're not just remembering what happened back then, Purim, or what happened back then, Pesach, or Rosh Hashanah, or for that matter, our birthday. The day that you honor your birthday, you recreate the events that happened when you first were born. So it's not just a commemoration, it's a re-experiencing. Rosh Hashanah, each year, the entire world goes back into a state of a comatose state and eagerly anticipating the renewal of its contract, which happens on Rosh Hashanah. So we recreate. That's why time is not like a river of time, it's a spiral, it's a cycle. Alter Rebbe brings in Likutei Torah, asks the question, why do we count the weeks? We start every week again from day 1, Sunday. It should go. Should have been the first week, should have been day 1 till day 7. The next Sunday should have been day 8, 9, 10. The next one should have been next week 15, 22, 29, and so on forever. Why do we keep going back to day 1? So many would answer, it's a technicality. Doesn't mean anything. Alter Rebbe, no. Because time is a spiral. It's a cycle that goes from chesed, sheishis yom mos Hashem hashemayim v'sa'aretz, not bisheshis. 6 days is the week, which means 6 energies. The energy of chesed and gvura, teferes, netzach, hed, yesed. Then comes 7 days, Shabbos, Malchus. Then the Zman goes back in Aliyah, back to chesed, back to the Makkah before chesed, and then next Sunday is again chesed. So it's a different access, but it's the same spiral. It's the same cycle. So it's a cycle, and that's how time works. So when we come back to a moment in time, every Sunday we're recreating what happened the first Sunday. And the same thing regarding Zecher, he's saying. It's not just a Zecher. It's Mamshich Mamaila, your Mamshich Me'ein, similar to the thing that you're remembering. In dem kommt zu Achidush ba'amiras hanesim. Okay, so you could say Nesim is the same thing. When we say the Nasi, we're recreating what happened when the first Nesim did their offerings. It says there's a Chidush by saying the Nesim in the beginning of Nisan. Was mezogdet zu a spezielle Tefillah. We say a special prayer. Und azat Tefillah, was me gefinden in Dugmosa in the Tefillahs von Kol HaShana Kula. And such a prayer, you don't find an example of it. It's unparalleled in all the prayers of the entire year. So we do a Zeichel and Migdal Zeichel Yitzhak. There's certain prayers that are said. We say by the Seder, etc. But here there's something unique and specific. What is it? So the Rebbe is going to spell it out. Noch amiras hanosi. After we say the nosi is a minig to zogen dem yehi rotzen. We say yehi rotzen. We say the parsha that on this and this day, day 1 of Rosh Chodesh Nisan was the hakrova by the nosi of Shevet Yehuda. And then we go through all each day this nasi. But then we say yehi rotzen. The Maramokim for the yehi rotzen is Migdash Melach, interestingly. It's a Pirush on Zohar from the Talmidei of the Arizal. Kavayosha, Siddur. He brings some Hayem Yem. Okay. So what does the yehi rotzen say? V'zel Sheineh. The Rebbe quotes the actual yehi rotzen. This is the unique yehi rotzen. Yehi rotzen milfanecha Hashem Elokai v'Elokei Avosai shebe'im ani avdecha meshevet pleni. This is the yehi rotzen. May it be your will before God, we say to God, and the God of our parents, that if I belong, ani avdecha, I am your servant from a particular shevet, particular tribe, shekarosi b'Torah secha parsha shel hanosi hayem, that I read in the Torah today, the parsha of the nosi of the day. So let's say I am a member of the shevet Yehuda, for example. Oza yeiru no'alai, then should radiate and illuminate upon me kol nitzutzin kadishin, all the holy sparks, v'chol ha'eres hakdeshus, and all the sacred energies and lights, haklulas b'kedushas zeh hashevet, that are encompassed in the holiness of this particular tribe. Lahovin, and what should it do for me? This illumination? Lahovin, to understand, or lahaskel, to conceive, b'teiresecha, in your Torah, u'b'yirasecha, and in awe of you, Yiras Hashem, lasis etzeincha kol yemei chayi, to fulfill your will, God's will. All the days of my life, ani, myself, v'zari, my children, v'zerazari, my grandchildren, the children of my children, ma'atav ad elam, from now to eternity. Amen. As the yehi rotzen. So yeah, clearly a very unique yehi rotzen. Here's how the Rebbe explains it. Now, between all the prayers and the different ways we make a zecher, we remember some event from the past throughout the year, you don't find such an action. We'll read the footnote shortly, footnote 14. We don't find such an action. As yet that every Jew, not just the Jew for that particular project, not just individuals, special individuals. Zolbetten should request as yiruno a lie, that it should radiate a lie upon me as an individual. Kol nitzutz in condition haklulas begdusha zeh. All the holy sparks that are encompassed in the holiness of this particular tribe. So you don't find such a statement in all the prayers and all the things that we do as a zecher. The Rebbe calls it not just a tefillah, he calls it a pu'ula. But Pashas, the reason is it's because you're not just praying, saying a tefillah, you want this hamshacha. Unochmer, and furthermore, the bakoshi is adozol nid bleiben behelem v'hester. The request is that it shouldn't remain concealed and covered. Nor virken in zayin aveda bepeil. Because you could have stopped and said, Ye'iru Elai, it radiates in me, and stop. He says, no. Lahavin Elahaskel should have an effect, an impact. Virkin, it should affect his actual Aveda. Lahavin Elahaskel b'teiresecha b'yirasecha lasis etzencha. To understand and to appreciate and to conceive and to the Teira and the Yirasecha and your Teira and your Yira. Lasis etzencha, to do your, fulfill, commit, realize your, do your will. Unochmer, kol yemei chaye. The Rebbe adds, and moreover, to all the days of my life, ani, myself, unochmer, and even more, v'zarei me'ata v'adelam. You know what? I'm just taken just by reading this. Look how the Rebbe takes a davening, a prayer, a tefillah. Yeah, when he said the Yehirotz, beautiful prayer, but look how the emphasis, the chiddush after chiddush. First of all, that every Jew should say such a thing. And not just we say it as a general abstract concept, but it should actually have a virkung, a pu'ula, an effect on us. And not just on us, on our children and grandchildren. Well, first of all, on our entire lives. And then our children and grandchildren, forever and ever. This is the chiddush. We don't stop yet. The chiddush gets even more. Nochmer, furthermore, at tefillah dafnin zayin ef ma'aseh nisim. You don't make a tefillah on miracles. Muzman sagen, therefore we have to say, as di tefillah, shall kol echad ve'echad miYisrael, this prayer that every individual Jew makes, says, ken b'kuyim ven b'derech hateva, could be fulfilled in natural ways. In cheshach kofel mechupel for zman hagolos. In the double and amplified darkness of the darkness of exile. Because if it was a miracle, we wouldn't make a tefillah in it. So this tefillah means it's realistic. It's realistic that we should actually radiate the holiness of these tribes, each tribe, of each shevet, and in a way that it impacts your life, in your Teira and Yira, and all the days of your life, and your children and grandchildren forever. All this is realistic, naturally. Und euch, the Rebbe continues, Bechlal, at tefillah von ha'iden wird doch mukoyim bepoil. And in general, a prayer of a Jew is not just to naught, God forbid. It's the whole point of it is it gets fulfilled. God listens to our prayers. Ubafrat tefillah de rabbim, specifically a prayer that's not just said by an individual but by a group. Like it says the pasuk, one of the rayas, the Gemara and Brachas, the Avches brings the power of tefillah b'tzibur, and he says there clearly, by the way, tzibur. Tzibur doesn't always mean that you have to be together with everyone. You're davening when the tzibur davens. Everyone's davening at the same time, which of course is fitting to our times now. So Henkel Kabbalah Yimus is one of the psukim. The Eibishter does not withhold from the numerous. Meaning when there's many people together, the Eibishter does not withhold a raya that there's a special bracha when it comes to tefillah b'tzibur. Barabim, I should say. Barabim. Many. So let's read. I was going to read Ha'ara 14 before we continue. But what this adds, the paragraph before I get to the Ha'ara, that Rebbe is saying, so in other words, we have the chiddush of the tefillah itself. A tefillah gets fulfilled, meaning it's natural, and a tefillah is fulfilled. So we're not just saying words, God forbid. It's really about fulfilling something extraordinary here that you don't find elsewhere, is the chiddush here. Footnote 14, the Rebbe just qualifies, I want to go back a moment, where he says, we don't find such a pula. The Rebbe says, but one second, we do find tefillahs demis leah. That also the tefillahs that are similar to this Yehiratzen, like the Yehiratzen after Tashlich, by Shayna Rabba, after B'dikas Chometz, the Rabbeinu Shalom by Sfiras Eimer, Shemispal al Hamshachas Mamayla, which we also say on drawing down transmissions from above, Ein ze b'dei meklala b'kosher zushu l'chol yimei chayai v'ad elam. Not at all comparable to this request, which is all days of your life, v'ad elam, forever. So that's one thing that makes it unique over the others. The Rebbe just qualifying to show how this is unique. V'oid, additionally, she'yirun al kol netzutzin, alai kol netzutzin kadishin, hakluz b'kedusha zeh shevet, u'shezeh yifel b'avedas adam b'peil, lahaskil b'teiresecha ki b'fnim. Additionally, that it should radiate, should actually have that impact of this tribe, that it should peil on avedas adam, like he says in the fnim. This is unique to this Yehiratzen that we say by the Nasi. And now we go to the next page 372. So he's continuing to explain the power of the saying of the Nasi. B'frat as mizmesayim amen v'meloshin emes, and specifically that we conclude the prayer with an amen. After Ela Elam we say amen, ad elam amen, which comes from the word emes, truth. V'dos gitzu achizuk miyuchid in the bracha. It gives a special emphasis, a special strength to the blessing. Das tutuv the gemar hanetzachim, like the Gemara says in Nazir, that amen, God la'enu amen, it does the gemar hanetzachim. If you think of amen like during war, so those that fight the war and those that finish the battle, that's what amen does. So the amen now adds even more emphasis to this unique prayer. Kum teis, this is now concluding Siv Gimel, as the zeichel adeiris from akrovas and nesim b'chanukas hamizbeach, that the memory for generations of the offerings of the leaders, to the chamidas parsha nesim that we do by saying the parsha, is nit not a zeicher b'chlal. It's not just some general commemoration. If epes v'sot basit amol, of something that happened in the past, now das is nitzchi and atkedei kach. It's eternal. It's eternal. Yeah, the Rebbe introduces the word nitzchi. And to the extent, bizme bakum b'peil, to the point that we actually receive an actuality, kol nitzutzin kedishim v'kol ha'eres ha'kedeshis ha'klulas b'kedusha zeh ha'shevet. All those energies that come from that particular tribe. Und das wirkt, emphasizing again, and that peils, that actually has impact, lahavn and lahask b'seiresecha b'yiresecha lases, emphasis on the word asiyah, action, ritzencha kol yemei chayi ani v'zari v'zari ma'ata v'adelom. So now we have, from Siv Gimel, from Siv Beis, the Chiddush was that Yehiratzen is not said, we don't make a zecher for most things from the past. And here we do. Even though it was a one-time event and happened in the Mishkan. In Siv Gimel, the Chiddush became stronger because there's a special Yehiratzen that you don't find elsewhere. And a Yehiratzen that goes all the way down to the fact that it affects us in a natural way and realistically expected to be fulfilled, especially because of the Amen. So that's the Chiddush that we have now from the saying of the Nesim, now with the Yehiratzen that the Rebbe added in Siv Gimel. Now more than it goes further, now the Rebbe is going to go to even a Gresser Chiddush. You could see just from the build-up that the Rebbe his objective is to demonstrate something that most of us maybe take for granted, maybe not, but to some extent don't appreciate to the fullest what it means to say the Nasi. But the Rebbe, as a Nasi, is teaching us what it means, teaching us the Chiddush Shebezeh. So now goes Siv Dalet. In dem kommt zu noch a Gresser Chiddush. And this comes even a greater innovation or Chiddush, a contribution, if you wish. Chiddush, hard to say the words, more than contribution. Chiddush is innovation, something that you don't find elsewhere. It's unique, unprecedented. Then minigi is, as jeder Eid sagt, alle Yud Beis Nisim. This seemed to have jumped out earlier, but now the Rebbe is spelling it out. Every Jew says all the 12 Nisim. You see already where this is going. You can't be one person from 12 tribes. Jeder Tag sagt dem Nossi von dem betreffenden Tag und nach dem Yehirotzen. Every Jew says each day, Yehuda and then all the others, as we go along, we say that every tribe, every Shevet, and also the Yehirotzen. The Yehirotzen, that Shevet's energy should shine on you to impact you, and forever, and for your generations to come. Staltzach the Shaila. So this immediately evokes a question. In dem Yehirotzen sagt man doch in Aloshon shel sagt man doch in dem Yehirotzen sagt man doch in Aloshon shel Sofek. The Yehirotzen we say as a doubt. We don't say for sure. It says Be'im ani avdecha meshevet pleini chulu. If I am your servant from this particular shevet, das says as a Sofek und es kann gar sein as der Zoger hat kein Sheiches in dem shevet mesuyim. It's a doubt because you cannot be a member of every tribe, so it's a doubt. And it's possible that the one who's saying it has no connection at all with the shevet that he's saying that day. Because every Jew belongs only to one tribe, and we always go by the father. Kum doches, as in 11 in the 12 tag, what this emerges from this is a very bizarre result. That 11 of the 12 days, we say a prayer that has nothing to do with this particular person who's praying. In the footnote, the Rebbe brings from the Chidah that there are those that hold, that's why you don't say Be'im. Because if it's a suffix, and it's not applicable to you, so they don't say Be'im. But that doesn't answer the question. That only it just carries over the question. What do you mean not saying Be'im? You're still not from every tribe. Okay. Muzmin sagen, so we have to say, as jeder Eid is efsher, as soll sein kol von alle andere Eiden, Shvatim. That every Jew, possible, that is encompassed from all other Jews, and meaning from all other tribes. So if we were all independent entities, so we're only shaykh to one shevet, you only have a relationship with one tribe. But what happens if each of us has something from every other Jew, every other tribe? And the Rebbe adds efsher azol zayin, because it says be'im ani avdecha. Doesn't say for sure. Be'im meaning possible, that it's possible that he's encompassed it from other tribes. Und der Fall is efsher as jeder Eid kann kabel sein, der Eid is von alle Shvatim. And that's why it's possible that a Jew can receive the energies from all the tribes. So you have your primary tribe, which you were born into, your father's tribe, whatever tribe that may be. But because of our connection to each other, it's possible that we also have a connection, and that's the Be'im. It's not for sure. We all have a connection, that's for sure. But to say that you have a specific connection to a particular tribe, that's efshir, and that's why we can be received energies from that particular tribe. And how do we can explain it with a directive from the Rebbe Rashab. And Hayem Yem Aleph Nissen. As afila Kain v'Levi dav zogen dem nosiu and dem Yehirotzen b'chol yem. That also a Kain and Levi, meaning people from the Shevet Levi, Kain and Levi, dav zogen dem nosiu and dem Yehirotzen b'chol yem. Because they for sure belong to Shevet Levi. There's no doubt. Others you could say we don't know because Sancherev, Bilbul, Se'elam, so we don't know which tribe we belong to. But they for sure belong to the tribe of Levi. And still they say it every day, said the Rebbe Rashab, with the Hirotzen. Ki zeh shayich le'ibur. Because that has a relationship to Ibur. Ibur is one of the ways, al pi Kabbalah, that a neshama of one person can enter into a neshama of another. B'chinas Ibur. There's Gilgul, which is reincarnation. Ibur is in a form of pregnancy. So it's not the full neshama. In some way, b'chinas Ibur, one neshama can be impregnated into another. U'mitzad Ibur, And due to this ibur, this ability that a neshama, part of a neshama, should impregnate, meaning embedded into another, so there they could have a shaykhus. So based on the hero of the Rebbe Rashab, they says by Levi, you can apply that to every Jew. In the footnote, the Rebbe brings Ibur 23. He brings in Tanya, because Tanya speaks there that Yada love ruch memon, that could be able a person to enough aved that b'chinas ibur and a shama v'tzadik can end up even in a beinani. So it's an example how that can happen. Good. The Rebbe zogt yadrid b'chol yem dem nasi and the nogdem yehiratzen. So this explains. That's why every Jew says every day the nasi, each leader of each tribe, and the yehiratzen, un efshe sheti al avadai, and it's possible that it should actually be certain. Oh, it's a strange lashon, but the Rebbe wrote it. It could be that you're saying it on an actual reality, which means that you actually have that. Why? That radiate on me all the spark, the holy sparks, and all the energies of this particular shevet. Now, if it's possible, but the possibility, if it is that way, it's a vaday. That has a connection to that particular shevet, to Bechinas Ibur, and that's why he says it. In the footnote, the Rebbe asks in 24, even though everyone has every tribe, has a mepnei shebeim kipshutehu mishevet pleni. Mekabel meir is the shevet zeh begili yeser. That the beim is not referring whether you have other Shvatim in you. Be'im, if I am actually from this tribe, then I have a much stronger energy coming, because that's directly from that tribe. It's not through then you have it, but you have it more through osmosis or through an extension, ibur from another. Here's the interesting chiddush, that by praying and saying that itself helps to reveal the connection to that tribe. That's why. That's why also Levi, Cain and Levi say it. So it's adding a beard in the Rebbe Rashab, but the Rebbe says Vadayin Sarachiyun, because the Rebbe Rashab doesn't say that. He says that you should say because of Ibur. That here the Hisof is that maybe the Tefillah actually makes it come into you. Okay, footnote 25 is just to explain also Shevet Levi. So we're now on next page 373. Kumteis. So from this emerges, as Nochdam was mefarendik zogen alle nesim biyud beis nissen mit dem Yehiratzen shal kol achad ve'echad yeirun al kol netzutzen kedushin v'chol eres akdeshes haklulas begedusha zeh hashevet. That after we finish saying all this nesim, meaning at the end of the 12 days, on the 12th of Nisan, with the Yehiratzen, werden mekuyim bakoshes von the alle Yehiratzens. All the requests get fulfilled from all the hiratzins that you said for 12 days. When Aid ved balichten, a Jew gets balichten, illuminated, lit up, brightened, with all kol nitzutz and gadishim, kol eres hakdesh hakluz, b'chol shevet v'shevet. All the holy sparks and all the energies, the holy energies that are encompassed in every shevet. V'zeh zayin kela alle nitzutz and gadishim b'chol elam kulei. They encompass all the holy sparks from the entire world. They were all created b'shvil Yisrael. So every spark on earth was created b'shvil Yisrael. But if you said only one tribe, you could say, okay, you have one part of the sparks. But now that you have all the sparks and all the energies from all the tribes, and the whole world is b'shvil Yisrael, was Yisrael teltzich and Yud Beishvatim. So therefore, you have unto all the sparks of the world. That the 12 tribes encompass every possible form of Aveda, 12 different general forms of Aveda. You see how the Chiddush has now emerged in Siv Dalet. Is doch verstandig de Peula was das is, was hot in Lahavin Lahaskel B'Seiresecha B'Yiresecha Lasses Etzencha. So we can understand what kind of impact. You're not just having the impact of one tribe, you're having the impact of all tribes, of all the sparks on earth. V'balda, das kommt von allen Netzutzes Gdeishes von alle Shvatim, because it comes from all the holy sparks from all the tribes, which encompass the entire earth. This is the Chiddush in Siv Dalad now. After Siv Gimel, where he explained the uniqueness of the Tefillah, now he explained how each of us has not just one tribe, we have all of it. So we have three different Chidushim, levels of Chidushim on the Nesiim. What's the explanation behind this? Yeshlemer Sifhei. If Yeshlemer dem Tam, if dem Chidush in Hakrovas HaNesiim, we could say the reason of this Chidush. So why Taka does Nesiim have this Chidush that other things don't have? First of all, we don't make a Zecher for so many things. Secondly, you don't say the Hiratzin. Third, you don't say such a Hiratzin where every Jew gets all the Nesiim, all the Shvatim. So what's the reason? Aleph, as we make a Zecher, a memory for generations. Beis, ad kedei kach as mebetas is vet mekuyim the tefillah yirinu alai. Two, that we ask the fulfillment of this prayer. A chidush was mekfinit b'kein an dezach. A chidush you don't find anywhere else. So here's the Rebbe's explanation. You have to say that something about the Nesiim that's unique, that you not find anywhere else. What is it? Hakrovas HaNesiim far Chanukas HaMizbeach is a yisod v'aschola if they're aveda von alle Eden b'meshach kol hateres. The offerings of the Nesiim were not just an event that happened then. It's a foundation and the beginning of the work of the Jews b'meshach kol hateres, throughout all the generations. He brings from the Shalah an interesting expression. Ki kol nosi v'nosi hayele seidis gdelis asher himshichu shefa aruchnis kol echel l'shifte kol yemei elam u'begriyas apashu me'er gedushas hayem. That every nosi has great secrets that were drawn down in a spiritual flow, each shevet for yemei elam forever. And when you read that pasha, you awaken that holiness. So that's what the power of the Nesiim is. So what? Ki yedua as Chanukas HaMizbeach is azei v'der'in achinuch. Chanukas HaMizbeach, dedicating the altar, which the Nesiim did with their offerings, is from the word chinuch, like education. Azei v'der'in achinuch stellt avek dem yisod from the ganze aveda from the mention. Just like education establishes the foundation of all the work a person will for his entire life. Education is the foundation. The same thing, the dedication of the altar by the Nesiim established the foundation for all the work in the Mishkan. The Tachlis von Gans Avedas Adam, which is the purpose of all existence, of all work of a person. What is it? The mission of our lives. Build for me a sanctuary, I will rest among you. Who established the foundation of this fundamental thing, which means that basically the transformation of this world into a sacred divine abode, home. Where's that? Who established that? What's the chinuch for that? Chanukas HaMizbeach of the 12 leaders. The Nesiim, through their offerings, they established the foundation, the chinuch of that. So we're not talking about a detail. You're talking about the foundation of everything, of all of existence. Remember we spoke about the Nitzutzik Desha of all of existence. All encompassed, all begins with this work, with their chinuch, with their education. Und der Fahrrad Chanukas HaMizbeach, der darf sein durch alle Shvatim. And that explains why you needed all the Shvatim. You could have had one Shevet, 2 Shvatim. All the tribes had to participate. Because they encompass the entire spectrum of every particular type of work. Since V'shachanti b'seicha means transforming the world into a divine home, there can't be one aspect of the universe and one form or one style of work that's missing. Und dafke durch the Nesiim from the Shvatim, not just through the Shvatim, through the leaders of the tribes, varam haNasi hu akel. Now that Rebbe introduces haNasi, because the Nasi is everything. The Nasi encompasses, like the head. Kol HaShevet Kuli, he encompasses his entire tribe. Und durch dem Kol HaShvatim Kulim alle Eden. So when you have all the leaders of each tribe, and then all of them, you have all the Jewish people, and by extension the entire world, all through what? Through the through the offerings that were like an education, a foundation in the purpose of all of existence. Und der Rebbe, next page, 374. Und der Iber is agroves hanesim lechanukas hamishkan adover nitzchi b'chol hadeires. That's why the offering of the nesim, even though it happened once, and it happened in the Mishkan a long time ago, for the different Beis Rishon and Beis Sheni, is something eternal for all generations. In the Medrash, the Rebbe brings in the footnote 36, Nitlem Havaya Sheyu Kayomim Le'elam. The things, the offerings they brought should be forever. When the far machpan fun akroves hanesim azeche nitzchi l'deiros, and that's why we create a zeche nitzchi, an eternal commemoration from the offerings of the nesim, because it's not a one-time thing; it's something that's fundamental, foundation forever. Durch hamiris pasha nesim reish chedesh nisan ad yud beis boy und durch nit sagen demol tachnun. By saying the nesim from the 1st to the 12th of Nisan, and not saying tachnun like we discussed earlier. Biz azecher nitzchi was vet nimshach b'peil, to the extent a zecher, because it's so fundamental. If it was just a zecher, okay, they brought offerings, but we wanted to affect the world. V'shachanti b'seichem, we want to transform existence. So to that extent, the Hiratzen, that it should have an actual impact. By saying the Hiratzen, du levas mezogda by Hiratzen, yeiru no alai kol nitzutzen kadishin, lahavna lahaskel b'seresecha b'irasecha lases, litzenchel kol yemechayev ani v'zari v'zerazari ma'ata v'adelam, amen. Why? Because this is the foundation of everything we do. Everything we do is built on the Nesim, the leaders that trained and dedicated the temple back then. And that remains something forever, impacting us forever. And that's why we recreated on the Rosh Chodesh Nisan through the first days of Nisan, through the 12th, 13th of Nisan. The Funis Verstandig Sivov. From this we understand the Bazundere is Geteltkeit from the Itzteki Yemei Gula. Now it goes back, the Rebbe, to the first Sif. Remember, he said the whole thing began with a special Yemei Gula. What is special about the beginning of Nisan? So the Rebbe says, now we understand what's so special about it. We always knew there was something special, but now look at this whole dimensions added. Die Text zeichnen sich speziell damit, was in sie ist unterstrichen. These days stand out in a unique way with the fact that they underscore Aleph, the Nitzchis von Nesi Yisrael, the eternity of the leaders of Israel. The Rebbe brings the footnote, Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Rosh Hashanah l'Malachim, the Malchi Yisrael, the leaders. Vayed Nasi B'Deirei is K'Nasi Arishin B'Deirei, because every leader of a generation is like the first leader of the generation. So the leaders, the Nesim then, the Nesim now, are all Nesim are connected to the first Nesim. The Rebbe brings a footnote from Keles Yaakov that the Rebbe said, Nasi Rosh Tevis Netzuchi Shel Yaakov Avinu. So it just shows you that Nasi's, the sparks of Yaakov Avinu, they're all connected. Beis, die Iskashus v'chulu von jeder Yid b'chol der v'der mit dem Nesi Yisrael was vet nimshach von der Iskashus. The connection of every Jew with the leaders of Israel was vet nimshach, that gets extended, that gets transmitted from this Iskashus, from this connection. Welches given bezmach Hanukas HaMishkan Iskashus Nitzchis. So two things. We remember the eternal power of Nesim, because they're all connected, and we also remember the Iskashus. Every Jew is saying the Hiratzen, and saying that the Hamshachas should all come from that particular Nasi of that Shevet. So that underscores how every Jew in every generation is connected with the Nesi Yisrael, because we say the Nesim. And the connection comes from that Iskashus, by connecting to the Nasi. All going back to the first Iskashus, to the Nesim back then, which was an eternal connection. So it's the eternity of the Nesim and the eternity of our connection with them. Ad kedei kach, to the extent, as chotz de akrova from the Nesim, that though the offerings of these leaders, for Chanukas HaMizbeach, dedicating the altar is given mit a zeifel tezen te Jordan Tzidik, was so many thousands of years ago, it's over 3,300 years, und nat bestimmten Mokum Zman, in a particular space and time, Zman Amshache, Zman Mishkan in Midbar, the time of the Mishkan back in the wilderness, und nur an ein Molike Zach, and only a one-time event, as we discussed, machten davon a Zeiche Nitzchi Lederes durch Hamiris an Nesim, von der Schchedisch bis Yud Beis Nissen, und durch Nitzog und Tachmen. We make from this a eternal memory for generations by saying the Nesim, and by not saying Tachnun. So it's not just we're not just remembering, we're recreating the eternity of the effect of the Nesim on V'shechanti B'seichel, building a Mishkan, and our connection to them. Because through them we draw those energies within ourselves and into the world. Unid blaze azeichen, and not just a memory, nor yet that every Jew, including even in the darkest darkness, the double, triple dark, the double and compounded darkness of exile, of displacement, Bakum Bepel Durach Dinesim receives through the leaders. And now that I make it clear that all the leaders are connected, Kol Nitzutz and Kaddish V'Kol Eres V'Agdeshus von alle Shvatim, all the holy sparks and all the holy energies from all the tribes. Und das wirkt auf sehr Aveda Bepel, and this impacts on their actual work. In the work of building a Mishkan, in each one of us, in each single one of us. To understand and to perceive and comprehend and perceive and the Torah and the Yira, to fulfill God's will all the days of my life, me, my children, my grandchildren, forever and ever. In the footnote, the Rebbe says this is also emphasized in Likutei Torah of Parsha Vayikra. But you can read that on your own. Fine. Und der Inyan ist noch mehr unterstrichen, wenn man steht in dem Tag von Shabbos. And this is even more underscored and emphasized in the day of Shabbos. This is Shabbos, the Sicha. B'teich the tag von Amiris HaNesim, which is the middle of the days. Remember, it's Hey Nissen. Was is Keilen sich alle Yud Beis Nesim. Shabbos encompasses all the 12 leaders. Shabbos ein Ele the tag von dem vergangene Woche, because Shabbos, the days of the past week, elevate. Keile von der Schchedish Nissen bis Hey Nissen, from the Shchedish Nissen until the 5th of Nissen. My name is Baruch in the tag from the Kumendike Woche. And from Shabbos is blessed the days of the coming week, from Vav Nissen to Yud Beis Nissen. So that's what everything now comes together in Shabbos. Now comes the second section here, is connected now to Beis Nissen. And Rebbe brings it now to our generation. Darfun Siv Zayin, Darfun hat man ech alimud beneged zu Nisi Yisrael. B'chol der v'der. Now that we've established what the power of Nisim, the power of their eternity, more than that, the power of their effect on us eternally, and our children and grandchildren, to the point of actual impact and real effect, not just abstract. The Rebbe now brings this now to our generation. We have a lesson from this regarding the leaders of Israel in every generation. Next page, up to this generation, to this generation, the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is the Rebbe calls my father-in-law, made v'chami. As a Chedesh Nissen, that in the month of Nissen, befrat in die Tag, and specifically in these days, is unterstrochen sehr nitzchies. This is the days when their nitzchies of their nesias, their leadership, is underscored. Und this kashrus von all Eden mit dem Nasi. And the connection of all the Jews with the leader of the generation. As it is with the Hirotzins, that every Jew is connected to every Nasi and draws down that connection. So the Rebbe can explain that's why Beis Nissen happens right at the beginning of Nissen. Zwischen der Tag von Anheb Chedesh Nissen, wenn man sagt dem Nasi, between the days of the beginning of the month of Nissen when we say the Nasi, is dem Tag von Beis Nissen. It includes also the second day of Nissen. Was wird Nissalef in dem Shabbos that gets elevated in this Shabbos. the Yom HaElula from the Nossi, the Rebbe Morashab Nishmos Eden. The Yom HaElula, Stalkus, passing of the Rebbe, the leader, Nossi underlined, the Rebbe Rashab Nishmos Eden. The Rebbe points out that his Stalkus was Mitzvah Shabbos Parsha Vayikra, and I'll point out that this is the 100th year. It wasn't the 100th year when this was said, because it's 33 years ago. But now it's the 100th year, Tofresh Pei, was when the Stalkus happened. And it's also in the same day, Unyei Mascholos, Anasias, underscored, Anasias, the beginning of the leadership from Bnei Mamala Mekeme, his son, his successor. And then it brings that it goes on over to his son, especially his only son. Krei Dushas Meir V'Cham Yadmur, Nesi Darenu, the leader of our generation. In the footnote, the Rebbe adds, it's also in this month of Nisan, Yud Gimel Nisan is the Stalkus of the Tzemach Tzedek. And V'yesh Leimer, also the beginning of the Nesias of the Rebbe Marash. So you have in Nisan, the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Marash. 4 Nisim already, and of course Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe. Masim der Mid, was Hascholos Chedesh Nisan is verbunden mit Nisim Kanal. So it's not just random. It's not Beis Iyur. It could have been another month. It's happening Dafken Beis Nisan because Nisan is the beginning of Nisan is the emphasis of the eternity of Anasi and his connection to us. So that's why it's massive. By them too do we see the eternity. By them they also saw. So number one, the connection is the eternity and the connection to the Chassidim, to the people. But we see by them also, just like the Hirotzen emphasizes what, that it has a poil, that it should poil begashmis in a person. Remember, that was the big emphasis. Virkin of Zayin Aved B'Poil, Lahavin Elaskil. We don't just say, Ye'iru Na'alai, that it radiates, but it impacts us. So the Rebbe says, by the Nasim of our generations, we also see the Nitzchis coming not just spiritually, but also Nitzchis Elam. Remember, the impact of the Nisim is also on our Aveda, in Peil Mamish, in the Hovin or Lahaskil, and down to Lases, the Seincha, Kol Yemechai, Ani V'Zari, V'Zari Ma'ata V'Adelo. So we see there, Pu'ula, the Nitzchis of the Gashmis Elam from the Rebbe Rashab as well, and Zer Hiskashus Nitzchis mit Ali Eden Do. And their eternal connection with every Jew here. Un Ali Eden mit Zeh. And all the Jews with them. So say Medali Eden Da, Nitzchis Medali Eden Da, and Ali Eden Midzei, and all the Jews with them. Talks about both levels of Iskashus, both ways. In the footnote 43, the Rebbe brings what the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote right after the Stalkus of Beis Nisan, that Rei Yisrael Leize Bavad Shalei Yafridim Altzein Marisim Hine Eidzes Mis Rapsim Ladem Kisi Marim. He speaks that not only don't they forsake their sheep, the flock of the Tzein Marisam, that the shepherd does not forsake the flock, but they actually stand before God and do everything possible to protect us. L'hogen al am yeshudin. Says l'hodim kisemorim lisyatzev l'fnei heid kel rom v'nosei. L'hogen al am yeshudin, which we need more specifically today, to protect an am yeshudin. Ma'alahal name in the Mishamish, Afkanu in the Mishamish. Now he's going to explain this eternal connection. You're going to see, unbelievable how the Yehirotzen, which talks about affecting us, is literally found in the words that we're so familiar with the Rebbe Rashab, what he said before the Stalkus. And that so much becomes part of our connection with the Rabbeim, especially after Gimel Tammuz, so underscored in Hey Tevis, that the Rebbe lives on through what? Through his Torah, his Ksovim, which is Gashmis in us. It's known the words that the Rebbe Rashab said before his passing. Ich gehe in Himmel, I go to heaven, the Ksovim lo zechaych. And the writings I leave to you. When the Rebbe Rashab said it, he doesn't mention it here. The Frierdiker Rebbe was completely, could not get over himself. The Rebbe Rashab stared at him and said to him, Hispilus, Moichin, Moichin. Hispilus, you're getting excited. Moichin, Moichin. After that, it says, Berel Rivkin writes in Ashkaf to the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe just, you couldn't see any feelings on him. That didn't mean he didn't have them, he just controlled. Ich gehe in Himmel, I go to heaven, and the Ksovim lo zechaych. The drama of the moment, the Frierdiker Rebbe Rashab had asked to be taken into the cheder, into the room where he said Chassidus. All those years, the Rebbe Rashab. And those are the words that he said. Because the Pirish in them is, and the Rebbe explains the meaning in it. Because what does he mean? Ich gehe in Himmel. He could have said, Ksovim lo zechaych, I'm leaving you my writings. I go to heaven. Durch die Ksovim, was ich lo zeich, through the writings that I leave you. I leave for you. Hoppen dem Rebbe nicht mehr sagen, ich, you have ich, wie steht in Himmel. So it's connected. Ich gehe in Himmel. You want to have me as I am in heaven. Ich, my real essence, as I'm in heaven. It's inscribed in the words, in the Ksovim that I'm leaving you. Because tzaddikim are compared to the Creator, their Creator. And just like by the Eibishter, anon nafshi, I have inscribed my soul, my spirit, my essence into the words I give you, which is the Rosh Tevis of Anoichi, Hashem Elokecha, the Aseres Adibris, the foundation and which encompasses the whole Torah. The Eibishter had Kavyochel sich hereingegeben in Torah. The Rebbe Kavyochel, so to speak, infused himself, imparted himself, embedded himself in Torah. Is al derech ze tzaddikim, similar by tzaddikim, who are similar to their Creator, as they geben sich in ganzen herein in their Torah, Ksovim. That they completely invest themselves, completely immerse themselves, completely embed themselves, inscribe themselves, engrave themselves in their Torah, in their writings. Und der Rebbe durch seine Ksovim, sein Torah, and that's why through the Ksovim, through his writings, that lo zichayich, what I'm leaving you, was melenent in zeh umenut zeh bepeil. I'm leaving it to you not just to a collector's item. You learn it and you actually use it in actuality. Nutzt. Not just learning, applying it, bringing it into action in every possible way. Biz, even more, mizeh meifitz hamayonas chutza. You spread out, you distribute, you disseminate the well springs outward. Hopman dem Rebbe nicht meseiden allein. You have the Rebbe himself, ich in Himmel. Because that's where he is invested, that's where he placed himself. Now the truth is, you could ask, isn't that the case all the time, even before the Istalkus? But in the Istalkus it's Beilet, because that's all you have. You don't have the Guf, the Gashmi. So you have the essence of his soul, Anon Nafshi Ksovis in his Ksovim. And he says three things: to learn them, use them, and disseminate them. Then you have him. Emphasize, look at Begashmi Se'elam. We have that writings are not abstract. They're not just spiritual. They're physical writings. The Kisvei Yad, the manuscripts, the published works are physical. We have the Rebbe Nishma in the physical world because he is invested in that those physical writings. Vested, not just invested, infused. This means an eternal connection physically between the Rebbe, the Nossi, and Ali Eden. Exactly like he said, V'hi Rotzen, a Gashmizdike connection that the energy of the Shevet, of the Nossi of the Shevet doesn't remain energy. It comes and poils virks, it affects the person in his Torah, in his Aveda, himself forever, his whole life, his children, his grandchildren forever. So the Rebbe Nishma made it very clear. Beis Nissen, the emphasis that we've been learning, the Nitzchis of a Nossi, and the Nitzchis of the Nossi's connection and our connection with us through the Ksovim. It doesn't stop. The same thing is with his son, his successor, the Rebbe Frierdiker Rebbe. As durch seine Ksovim, through his writings, Sforim and his books, Unechosim and his property and his belongings, V'gam Hagashmim, and also the physical one. Next page, 376. Kidlakamon, as we'll learn soon, as we'll read soon. Hopman in Imalein Hotman imalein, we have himself, he himself, or begashmis, physically. Look at the underscore, the underlines. Imalein or begashmis. Nesef al Zed, the Rebbe says in the footnote that Zare B'chaim. Nesef. Zare B'chaim is that we're living his, according to his directive, so he's alive through us. But we have him begashmis because he is, his gashmis, his soul is now invested and infused in the gashmis of the Ksavim. Okay. V'yesh leimer sivches. V'yesh leimer as kveit grushes meire v'chami admur nesiderenu. This is, the plot just thickens. This is only going to get more excited now. Because now he's going to quote something from, but mind-blowing what he's going to quote. I don't want to give it away. We'll learn it inside together. He says like this, V'yesh leimer. We can say, my father-in-law is page 376 now, Sivches. Hat es madisch gewesen in sein ersten Maimer. Look how it all comes together. All comes together. It's not just, he emphasized this point in his first Maimer, which is Teira, his Teira, Chassidus, the Tur Nossi, as a Nossi. When was it said? The Maimer is Shabbos Keshet Parshat Tzav, so it's a week after Vayikra of the Histalkus, Acher Mincha. Yema Achen Shel Shiva, the last day of Shiva. Was beweist, that das ist a Scholle v'ikr v'yesod in sein ganzen Nesias. The fact that he placed it in his first discourse, his opening discourse as a leader, as a Nossi, indicates that this is the beginning of an Iker, a primary and foundation in his whole Nesias. And what is the name of the Maimer? Dibra Maskal Reishis Geimar Molik Vachreisei Geimar. And he says in the footnote, this is based on the Maimer, the last Maimer that the Rebbe Nashaz in Zayden said, Purim Tafresh Pei, with additions. It says, when this one ends, this one begins. This is the Lashon of the Maimer. That the place of the Torah and the work of the Tzaddik remains in its complete holiness also after his neshama goes up from the world of bodies l'chaim amitim, to true life, and the reflection of the light of his work remains in its place, because we can say the place where he learned and osak, immersed himself immersed himself more than exerted himself in Torah, v'chol kelov. So the place where he did it, and all the kelov, all his vessels, all his containers technically, but it means all his belongings, shehistamish behem. This would be his table, his chair, his pen, everything that he used, that he worked with them, l'tzorchei aveda, for the need for his work, for the aveda kedushase aleim, the kedusha remains upon them, mechelke biruri be'elam. All part of the chelik, part of the birudim of his refinements that he achieved in this world. So he says there clearly, the Gashmis, it's not just talking the Ruchnis. Und bringt auf dem a Biur. Biur hyphen Sipur. When you read it, you could say it's a story. The Rebbe says it's a Biur also. It's an explanation, not just a story. Wegen sein Vater, der Rebbe Nishmeseden, listen to this story. 100 years ago, this week, 100 years ago, the next day or two, this is what it happened. But his father, the Rebbe Nishmeseden, was his Delmot Ershne geworden, who's just then passed away. Here's what he writes in the story. V're'isi pam, quote, and I once saw the Frierdiker Rebbe saying, Kikvei dushas ha'amur harav HaKodesh, Akam, that my father, Nichnas l'cheder Ovav, entered the cheder Ovav, the room of his father, meaning the Rebbe Marash, Kvei dushas azmur, Zatzal, we'll read the whole thing. Zatzal v'kulu hey ziyah. So he's talking about the Rebbe Marash. And the Seder HaCheder, the order, the room where he was even where he was in his life, was still the same setup. Shoye b'chayev as it was in his lifetime. Zehoye be'erech shvishnas memheyo memvov. This was approximately the year Tofresh memheyo memvov. That would be, and memhey would be, it'd be 1845, 1846. So Frierdiker Rebbe would be 5 or 6 years old. V'nichnas levush b'chagura, and he entered dressed up with a chagura, with a gartel. V'amad eitz la'shulchan, and he stood near the table. Table is emphasized. Lamul kisei shifte, across the seat of the Rebbe Marash. V'sfosas neyes kemedaber, and his lips moved like he was speaking. Ubocha harbe, and he cried much. Und der Bir bezeh ist verstanden wie Yosef und am meduber mavur ba maimer sham. So we see from the story, emphasizing the mokim shaboy lamad and his kalim, that he actually saw his father standing in the room, everything with the same seder, the table, the chair, and he was speaking as the Marash was there, to emphasize the nitzchis even in the Gashmis. And what's the explanation? When der Bir is bezeh, is verstanden wie Yosef und am meduber mavur ba maimer sham. The explanation is understood from when you look in the Maimer, what's discussed and explained in the Maimer there. Was the Inyan, this Inyan, wegen nitzchis mokem avedose shel tzaddik, by the eternity of the space, the place of work of the tzaddik, meaning the actual room and everything in it. Kum behemshel tzedem v'said is mavayir in Maimer. This idea comes a continuation from what he explains earlier in the discourse, wegen der Unterschied zwischen Kedusha und Umazeh lahavdil. Difference between holiness and the opposite, things that are not holy. As in the Esser sphere is the Kedusha, and the 10 spheres of holiness, wird der Eir nesachet mit the Kelim. The energy gets one and united seamlessly with the containers. Und the Kelim sein bottle samer. And the containers are completely sublimated to the energy. There's a seamlessness. Because everyone knows its purpose in Kedusha. There's no ego. So for example, if I'm using any type of machine, let's say a pen, and I'm writing something, an appliance, but the pen decides it doesn't want to follow what I'm writing. I'm not saying the pen, just hypothetically. That's not Kedusha. In Kedusha, everyone knows its place. The Keli knows that its job is to convey the energy. And therefore it's bottled to it. The energy knows its job is not to remain abstract, but to go through this keli. So a neshama beguf is a perfect example. When they're healthy, the soul knows it has to work through the body. The body knows that it has to receive the energy of the soul. You have a healthy person. If the soul decides, no, I don't want to be in this body, or I'm not comfortable here, you'll have problems. If the body says, I have my own agenda, and is not ready to receive that energy, you have problems. Student and teacher. The teacher has to know I'm here dedicated completely to the student. The student has to know I want to be receptive to absorb what the teacher says. You break that link, you don't have seamlessness. So that's what he's saying, that in Kedusha, the Eid and the Keli all know exactly their role, and therefore, the Eid was in a Sachadim HaKelim, the Faram the Kelim, Akiyum Atzmi. That's what he explains in the man. That's why the Kelim, because of their bittul, that they are not egocentric, and because the Eir knows that it has to unite with them, so what happens? The eternal power of the divine energy extends now into the Keli. The Faram the Kelim, Akiyum Atzmi, Azevid the Kiyum Atzmi from the Meir. So suddenly the container, it becomes an extension of the same eternal focus. Think of it very simply. If your objective is just to take care of your needs, okay, you can build a business, you can do many different things, you could succeed, but you can only succeed as much as a mortal human being can succeed. But if you dedicate your life to a purpose that's greater than you are, and that purpose is eternal, then you become an extension of that eternity. That's the point. But you need that double connection. You need the Ur to unite with the Keli and the Keli to accept the Ur. Mitzad dem, was is dovig ba'amoyer, atzmusi is borach shemetzusi ma'atzmusi v'kayim b'chinas kiyum atzmi. The Ur is connected because the Ur is completely bottled. The Ur doesn't have anything of its own except expressing its source, which is, it's attached to its source, to its luminary, which in this case is Atzmusei is Baruch, essence of the divine, Shemitzusim Atzmusei. That's the ultimate Kiyam Atzmi. Mitzusim Atzmusei means his existence comes from within himself. Everything else, you can't call Kiyam Atzmi. You can't say it must exist. You can't call it absolute reality. Why? Because it has a source. And it could not have existed. The source could not have given it energy. So only Atzmus is Kiyam Atzmi. Eir, because it's completely dovuk, attached to the source. So the eternity, the absolute reality of the source flows through the Eir. Now that it attaches itself to the Keli and the Keli is bottle, so now the Keli also assumes that. So when a person has a table or a chair, but they use it for selfish purposes, where's their eternity? It's not divine, it's not eternal, it's whatever it's used for that moment, instant gratification. But if you use a table for studying Torah and for doing Aved, and the same thing with a chair, same thing with a pen, any object, and that is connected to what? To serving your purpose in life. The Keli is a bottle to the Eir, which is the energy of the Torah or the Aved or the Tefillah that Tzaddik did, which is itself a flow and a connection to the source, the essence. So all that flows, that even the Gashmis of the physical containers become a Kiyam Atzmi, even after the Histalkus, even when the physical Tzaddik is no longer there. Because his whole life is invested in that. In the footnote in 55, he explains it even further. Not just the dvekus and the kiyum of the kelim on their own. Remember, the body is not created by the soul. Because that you could say, you know what, the keli doesn't have the same bittul like the eir. Kiyum gam b'chin is kiyum atzmi shel eir. Here we're talking the keli assuming the properties of the eir. Not just that it has its own certain divine power, but it's not like the eir. Here it's an extension of the eir. Good. V'sazoyedus eich ba'ale mitzvahs sheneslapshu b'inyanim gashmim, klafa gashmi v'tzemer, hatzitzes u'kahai gavna v'chol masha b'retzeni yizbarach kelim ruyim la'oros eir elyon areim kayomim b'chines kiyum atzmi. This is all from the Maimer. That in general, the same thing is with all mitzvahs. Mitzvahs that manifest in physical things. Physical parchment for tefillin or mezuzahs or sefer Torah. Semeratzu, the wool of tzitzis, and similar. And everything that God wants, that the kelim royim, this should be the fitting and appropriate containers. For what? For being a container to channel their divine energy. They are all kayam b'chinas kiyam atzmi. That's why you can't throw out a sefer Torah or a mezuzah or tefillin. Because they become, even though they were once parchment that was neutral, rishus, chayil, something of the mundane world. But once they became a keli for a mitzvah, tashmishe mitzvah, so then once they become, they forever have b'chinas kiyam atzmi. That's why you have to bury a sefer Torah, etc. V'yesh lema, the Frierdiker Rebbe continues in the Maimer, shezeu yin de gedusha le'zazim emkema. This is the meaning that Kedusha never leaves its place. V'tashmishe Kedusha b'kedushasin hememdim. And Tashmishe Kedusha. Remember this Tashmishe Kedusha, Tashmishe Mitzvah. They remain in their holiness, next page, forever. Unevdem brengt wegen dem mokim atera v'avede v'klei Tashmishe von atzadik as kedushasam le'zazim kema. And this is the introduction that explains about the space of the Torah and Aveda and the Klei Tashmishi, all the utensils and the tools and instruments that the Tzaddik used, that it remains Kedusha and it never loses its Kedusha, the Kedusha, it does not move a brekel, it doesn't move at all, it remains unwavering in its eternity. Der Funkum Teis, from this we derive, as the Kiyum Nitzchah from Kedushas Mokim Agashmi, that the physical, eternal perpetuity, the eternal kiyum, I would say, the eternal existence of the holiness of the physical place, v'chol kelov sheishtamish behem, and all the utensils he worked with, hatzadik l'tzorchei aveda, the tzaddik did for the purpose of his work, is gam la'achri aloysim mechaya gufis. It's going back to the lashon that he used. It's even when he leaves, the neshama leaves from the world of the life of bodies. is es al derech u bedugmas der Kiyam Atzmi v'nitzchi von der Kelim mitzad Zeir Bitlo und Achdus mit dem Meer. It's similar to the Kiyam Atzmi, to the eternal preservation, Kiyam Atzmi, the eternal reality of the containers due to their bitl, their selfless connection and unity with the energy. V'yashlema nochman, we could say even more. Das is punkt dieselbe Sache wie der Eres v'kelim datzilis. Not just al derech ubedugma. It's not only an example. It's exactly like the energies and containers of Atzilus. This is very strong. We can say this is also understood from what it says in Tanya, Bebir Maimer Chazal, in the explanation of the Maimer Chazal, how Ovis Hein Hein HaMerkava. The Ovis, they are the Merkava chariot, completely bottle. As B'chol in Yoneim Zayin Ze Given HaMerkava D'Atzilus. In all their matters, they were a Merkava, a vehicle, a channel for Atzilus. Is al derech zeh benegei the tzaddikim v'nesim v'elchazayin and dugmosam. That same thing is with tzaddikim and nesim and leaders that are similar to the ovis. So it's not just bedugma eres v'kelim datzilis. It's exactly that. Das heißt, this means chay tzaddik zayin nitzchim. The life of a tzaddik is eternal. Not just beruchnius, because his whole life is chayim ruchniim. So his Gashmis became an extension of his Ruchnis. When the Alter Rebbe says, not Chaim Psorim, but Chaim Ruchnim, what does he mean? He means their physical flesh is spiritual. Not that they have no life. We see they have a body. But their body is a Keli of Atzilus. So it's Chaim Nitzkim. Not only spiritual speaking, no, das nem durch sein Mokum Gashmi and seine Kelim Gashmi. This infuses his physical space and his physical Kelim, his physical containers. Sein Tisch und Benkel, his table, his chair. Wir verstanden von dem Loschen Gedusha Lezazim im Kema is understood from the language that holiness never leaves its space, never leaves. As the Gedusha Ritzichnit, the Gedusha does not move, it's unwavering. Im Kema doesn't just not move from its place. In a footnote, the Rebbe says Memkeim is in the Maimer, but in Eitz Chaim, the source doesn't say the word Memkeim, just says Kedusha Lezaza. Here he says Memkeim from its place, Mokem Agashmi from its physical place, Becheder Ovov in the room of his father. He's going back to the story. Uneich Mokem Aruchni Mailo Madrege, and of course also in the spiritual sense that the quality does not shift. Ukedivrei HaMaimer, as it says in this Maimer, meaning back to the Maimer from Tafresh Pei, 100 years ago, as their Mokim Shebay Lomad V'Osik B'Teira, V'chol Kelev Sheishtamish Behem L'Tzorchi Avedi K'tushos Yaleim, that the place where he studied and he exerted himself in Teira, and all his containers, all his utensils, that he worked with them for service, for the purpose of his work, the Kedusha remains upon them, as Eir Dem Mokim V'Kelim Sheishtamish Behem L'Tzorchi Avedi, that also the place and the utensils that he worked with them for the purpose of his work, they are permeated and they receive the eternal holiness of the tzaddik. In the footnote he says, he's saying everything, even not only the things that, for example, are used for his Adon. So then, of course, it remains forever his Adon. His whole Metzius is like Adon v'keli la tzaddik, like the Adon v'keli leluchas abris. So he's talking about even things that remain in his room, that were not used necessarily for keeping him, not used for him for his Adon. That too maintains that Kedusha Nitzchis. Bis noch mehr, to the point even furthermore, as der Mokum und die Kelim sein Punkt wie der Zman, wenn der Tzaddik hat sich benutzt mit sie, bepeil als eine Neshama beguf. To the point that the place, that exactly like it was in the time when the Tzaddik used it, as a Neshama beguf. So he's going further. You could say it retains the holiness, but is it exactly as it was before Tafshin Yud? In this case, we verstanden from the Sipur and Maimer. We understand that from the story. This is how you see the biur that the Sipur adds. What does the Sipur teach us? That he went to see the Rebbe Maharash. It was after the Stalkus of Tafresh Mem Gimel. So you could say the table still has its holiness, absolutely. But exactly as it was before, as er ist rein in dem Cheder von sein Vater, he went into the room of his father. And the order was like it was but during his lifetime. And he stood there dressed up exactly as he did before Tafresh Mem Gimel, and stood by the table across the chair. His lips moved like he was speaking, and he cried much. Exactly as it was during the lifetime of the Rebbe Maharash. When he would go into Yechidus, the Rebbe Rashab. What is the union of Yechidus? Yeshlemer? As the Yechidah von dem was geht da rein, wird vereinzigt mit Yechidah von dem Rebbe. That's what Yechidah means. That the Yechidah of the person going in becomes one with the Yechidah, the deepest level of the soul of the Rebbe. B'chaim Chayusef from the Rebbe Maharash. As he did it when B'chaim Chayusef, when the Rebbe Maharash was here physically. So it's even deeper because it's punkt the same. Und der Bir bezeh ist verstanden von dem Gufe, wo das ist Kedusha leizazim im Kema. But you need explanation. We also have to make sure not that shouldn't be Megushim, and anyone should interpret this the wrong way. Remember, the point is the opposite. Not that the Rebbe's Chaim Psorim is Nitzchi. Even when his Chaim Psorim is here, it's Chaim Ruchnim. So b'meila, it continues on in that Gashmizdik way. Because the Chaim Psorim is really Chaim Ruchnim. Well, people make a mistake sometimes. They think, no, that Chaim Psorim is alive, is physically alive. His physical body is alive. Even when his physical body was here physically, that's really Chaim Ruchnim. That manifested the Kelim were Lefia Eir, not the Eir Lefia Keli. They both fit to each other. But it wasn't the Gashmi. So that continues on, because if you understand what Chaim Ruchnim continues on through his Kelim and through his Mokim and so on. He explains. Kedusha le'zazim came. Kedusha helikait nemtzach dafka from the Mokar HaKedusha. Holiness is taken from the source of holiness. The Eibishter Alein, God himself. So we're not talking about any human being, God forbid. This is the Eibishter. That's where Kedusha comes from. All we can do is be bottled to Kedusha. So it's not about us. It's not even about the tzaddik. The tzaddik is bottled. Is kishem with the Eibishter is chaim b'chinas atzmi v'nitzchi. Just as the Eibishter is chaim, is forever, he's eternal, in a atzmizdika way, meaning essentially that way, and eternally nitzchi. In the footnote, he says it's only b'shem moshel, because you can't really say it on the Eibishter. Okay. Varim, next page, Mitzuyusim Atzmuseh, because as we said from Egeres HaKedesh Simcha, his existence comes from himself. Everything else is dependent on a source. His reality is real because it's real. Reality because it's real. Absolute reality. It must be. So therefore is also his Kedusha, the holiness, which is rooted in the Mokar HaKedusha. And his energy is Doviku Me'ein HaMoed, that's attached and similar to the source. In other words, all it is, its only virtue is because it's an extension and completely sublimated and connected to the source. Kayim B'kiyim Atzmi V'nitzchi. It's preserved and it's eternal in a fundamental and an eternal and core level of immortality. And since the Kedusha becomes united with the Kelim, because the Kelim are bottled, the Kelim are bottled dazu, and the Kelim are bottled and sublimated to this Eir, so the Kelim also receive this Kiyum Atzmi in a way that there's no change, because it's all about an extension of the divine. As soon as you take away the divine, God forbid, it loses its connection. Think of like electricity running into an appliance, just as an example. As long as there's no block, as long as the appliance, the light bulb or any appliance, is completely sublimated and knows all it is receiving energy, the electricity itself knows is completely connected to its source, then everything becomes one flow. It's the source through the electricity into the appliance. Do something that severs that connection. Let's say the appliance malfunctions, is eroded, or there's some block. Let's say the electricity ceases to be connected to its power state, to its power source. So it all ends, because they have nothing of their own. They have no kiyum nitzchi. The Nitzchi is all extending from the source being a Nitzchi. It gives the power through Eir into Keli based on the conditions of that you're a tzaddik. A person completely dedicated to Kedusha. In Le'umazeh, as I said, ego dominates. The appliance has its own agenda, the energy has its agenda, the source is basically ignored. So of course there's no flow like that. Next siftes. And all this, before I continue, originates from what we learned from the Nossi, saying the Nossi, that we think of the Nossi impacting us in a physical way, in a real way, in a natural way. That's the common thread here. Siftes. Und der Kiyum, in page 378, und der Kiyum atzmi v'nitzchi von Kedusha satzadik v'nossi v'nimshol zu kol ha'elchem b'derech yeshara asher irana medrachav v'nelcha b'rechesav netzach salavad. Now he's going to explain, like he did with the Nisim, that this isn't just that the Nossi lives on through the physical, that it passes on to all those, this Kiyum atzmi v'nitzchi, to all those that follow his derech yeshara, his direct path that he directed, and that we learn from his teachings, and we follow his guidelines and his the path that he forged. Netzach salavad, underscored. Ein lehefsek elamis, that's forever. Durch dem was verbinden sich iskashus mit dem Nasi. Remember we spoke the Nitzchis is not just the Nasi, it's also the connection. By connecting themselves with the Nasi, Nesiderenu, keil eich durch verbinden sich mit seinen Ksavim, by binding themselves to his writings, Svarim v'chol, Ksavim lo zechayich, the writings that I leave to you. In welche the Nasi, in which the Nasi, ich, wie steht in Himmel, the eye of the Nasi, ich, as he is in heaven, hat sich in ganzen hereingegeben lamata, completely infused himself into this below, the Ksavim. Ubafrad durch dem was lernen in the Ksavim v'Svarim, especially through learning in these Ksavim v'Svarim. So they're not just connected, but they're actually learning in them, in his writings and his books. Bringen das herab im Meise bepeil, and bring it down into action. By sich allein, by themselves, und euch hafotzes hamayonas chutza, also spreading the well springs, disseminating the well springs outward from the ksavim v'sfarim, of the writings and the books, as we discussed earlier. So when people, the Chassidim, follow, was durch dem wird jeder Eid, was verbindet sich mit dem Nasi, through this every Jew that binds himself to the Nasi, he becomes baleuchten, illuminated, mit kol netzutzen geduschen v'chol ha'eres ha'kedushes ha'klulis in dem Nasi, using the lashon from the Hiratzen. He receives all the divine sparks and all the holy energies that are encompassed in this leader. Was benegel in the Siderenu, regarding the Siderenu, the leader of our generation, is a kel hakel. Valanosi hu hakel. He encompasses everything. Just like we spoke about the Yud Beis Shvatim, there you need all the Shvatim. Moshe is a Nasi hakel. But there all the Shvatim is the hakel. Here the Nasi hu hakel. Und das wirkt lahavin ula haskel b'seresecha. To understand this impacts, to understand and to conceive and perceive in your Torah, Kelu b'fra benudin nedan and diksam v'sfarim from the Nasi, including and specifically in our case, the writings and the books of the Nasi, of the leader, ubi roscha, and fear and awe, lasis esenka kol yimechai ani v'zari v'zeri me'ata v'adelam, nitzchi. To fulfill your will all the days of my life, I, my children and grandchildren forever and ever. Sif Yud. This is the concluding, the last two concluding sifim. Ubenegei lepeil. What do we take away from this Ubenegei lepeil? And empowerment, especially in our unique time. We have to bind ourselves with the Nasi, the Rebbe, my father-in-law. Und durch den bekommt the Nitzchis von dem Nasi. And through binding ourselves, we access, when we, as I said, committed to a cause that's beyond us. And the Rebbe himself is committed to the cause beyond him, the Eibishter. So we receive nitzchis from the Nasi. Biza das wirkt, lahavnu lahaskel b'seiresecha, to the point that it impacts lernen Torah, to learn Torah, nigle chassidus, the outer dimension, the revealed dimension of Torah, and primus Torah, Torah from the Torah from our Rabbeim, our leaders. The Talmud Gadol Shemevi L'Dei Maaseh, and the Talmud is great because it brings down into action. Lasis etzchen chod HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol yemei chaya. To do the Ratzon of the Eibishter all the days of your life. Kiyum ha-mitzvahs b'chlal. The general performance of mitzvahs. Und speziell in die Zeit, die in Yonim Shazman Geroma, and especially in this time, the matters that are very time-related. Mifza Pesach, the campaign of Pesach, Greten sich und andere Eden und Klal Yisrael, to prepare yourself, and other Jews, and all of Klal Yisrael, the entire Jewish community, to Chag Pesach, to the holiday of Pesach. Durch Schaffen für sich und für andere Eden alle Tzorchei HaChag, by purchasing, by acquiring for yourself and for other Jews, all the needs of the holiday. Sai the Gashmis dikun sai, both the physical and both ubeikar amaisa sheyasa, the ruchnis dika. And primarily amaisa sheyasa, the action that to be done, is the spiritual needs. Wissen die hilchas achag and mitzvahs achag, to know the laws of the holiday, and mitzvahs, the mitzvahs of the holiday. Unebeling von der Chaschola hilchas of Pesach und von dem Leil HaSeder. The beginning, the laws of Erev Pesach, before Pesach, and from the night of the Pesach Seder. And now comes the last powerful sif, where the Rebbe brings it all together, the nitzchis in our personal lives. In dem allem kommt zu a spezielle Adgoshe benegates the meaning of a smeret letztens. In all this comes a special emphasis in a topic that Rebbe was very much focusing on during that time in Tov Shemem Zayin. To make for me a migdash, to take all the things that belong to you and make it a holy sanctuary, and I will rest among you, says God. Was the keich of the Avedus from Kol HaMishkan, remember, all the power of building a Mishkan from your life, kommt von Chanukas HaMishkan durch HaKrovas HaNesim, comes from the dedication of the sanctuary through the offerings of the leaders, as we said, Kanal Sifei, as we said earlier, section 5. Osi li means it's never zos le'elam, it never ends, it's nitzchi. So Osi li migdash is not just be for me a migdash then, it's till this day, right now. All our work today, as yed der'id, next page, last page, 379. As yed der'id, man, froi und kind, every Jew, man, woman, and child, macht sein Haus und Cheder, makes from his home and from his room, al derech a migdash ma'at, like a migdash ma'at, like a mini sanctuary, from his home and his room. Where are we doing now our shuls, our learning? Where is our migdash ma'at? A bayis teire tefillah gemach tzedakah, a home for teire, for davening, and for good deeds, gemach tzedakah charity. Azayas the beis gashmi, and the kelim gashmi, your physical home, and the physical containers and vessels and instruments. The tish and benkel kietz bezeh, the table and the chair, for example, and similar. That in kelim tzedusha, they become kelim for kedusha. Dur teira tefillah v'tzedakah, a bayis molis farim, a home filled with books. Vi unterstrochen euch in Chag HaPesach, Asher Pasach al botei b'nei Yisrael. It's also emphasized Pesach. Asher Pasach leaped over the homes of b'nei Yisrael. Atam, the Pasuk says, he doesn't bring it in, Leiseitseu, the Pesach Beisi ad Beker. Atam Leiseitsu, the Pesach Beitzam ad Beker. So the bottom, to make it from your bias, a Shanti B'Seicham. This is how the Rebbe says we extend the nitzchis of the Nesiim and the nitzchis of the Nesiim of our time, which we discussed at length how it works for them, on our own domains, on our lives, and our personal lives. Clear directive. And even when we're in our own home. Und spezielle Acht soll man in dem legen, a special emphasis we should place, benegeet zu chinuch von Kinder, regarding the education of children. For they nemen a hipt eintel in dem Seder shel Pesach. They play a prominent role in the Seder of Pesach, in the Passover Seder. We tut verschiedene Sachen noch vor Pesach. We do a number of things even before Pesach. We macht shinuyim, and we make changes, but they shall yishnu hatanekes. So the children shouldn't fall asleep, but they should yishlu hatanekes. So in order the children should ask questions. So we see how primary a role they play. Keilolech as yet der Kind soll haben sein eigenem Siddur. Also including that every child should have his own Siddur, his own prayer book, Chumash, und lahavdil tzedakah pushka, and a charity box. Unecha eigene Haggadah shel Pesach, mit tziyurim. Should also have his own Passover Haggadah, with pictures, with images. In the footnote, the Rebbe says, through that they won't fall asleep, the children, when it's an illustrated Haggadah. Und durch dem Allen macht der Kind sein Zimmer und Tischel und Bettel. And through all of this, the child, not just us, the adults, makes from his room, from his table, Tischel, his little table, his little bed, a migdash ma'at, a keli tzedusha, a mini sanctuary, a container, a channel to holiness. Was demol bakum der cheder gashmi und the kelim gashmi. And then that physical room and the physical items in that room, und der ganze bayis, and the entire home, receives what? A kiyum nitzchi. Not because it has power of its own, because it's dedicated itself to something eternal that's flowing from the source through the eir to the kelim gashmim. Varam gedusha leizazmim came a canal, because holiness never leaves, never moves, never wavers. Once it's there forever. Umigeta himtzarayin. Listen to this. And we go into that home. Angetan mit a kapote und a gartel. Dressed with a kapote. Talking now the story of the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe is now applying it to each one of us. You're going with a kapote, which is the long coat we wear, Shabbos and Yontif, some every day. Und a gartel, and our gartel. Steht leben Tisch, and we stand near the table. But in a way that we say, know before whom you stand. Umeret, and we speak, midmoye shel simcha, with tears of joy, like the Rebbe Rashab cried. V'azun zu sein Vater. We speak like a son to his father. A ben yochid seherim skenim, an only child to elderly parents. Aid, a Jew, bonim atem l'Hashem Elokechem, who the children of God, so avinu shebashamayim, to our Father in heaven. For das verschafft dem Vater dem größten Tainug. This causes the Father the greatest pleasure. Und der Tainug beide wird Tainug nivre. And the pleasure of the Creator becomes our pleasure. Yet again, an example of total seamless fusion between the divine and existence, between the divine and us. Only when it's Gedusha, holy, and it's bottle, and the Eir and the Keli join seamlessly. Biza das kommt ares betachlis hagiyu v'yishlemus, to the point that it comes out and utterly revealed and completely revealed in the Migdash Gadol, in the big Migdash, in the grand macro sanctuary, Bebeis HaMigdash HaShlishi, the third temple, und dort gufen, there itself in Kedesh HaKadoshim, in the Holy of Holies, Yechida Shebamokim Shebaelam, Yechida, remember Yechida, the essence of the soul in space, in the world, Elam Shana Nefesh. Vu Yechida shall call Nefesh mi Yisrael, where the Yechida of every Nefesh, every soul of Israel. Verbindt sich mit Yechida Shalamayla, connects with the Yechida Shalamayla, Yechida Shalelam. The singularity, the singularness of the divine unity. The only Yechida Shalelam, the only one, God. Begula Amitis Vashlema, in the complete and true redemption, the true and complete redemption, Aidei Mashiach Tzidkenu, through Mashiach Tzidkenu, Yechida Klolis will be the all-encompassing, the macrocosmic Yechida. The Tekef Umiyad Mamish, and immediately now. This we conclude the Sikha. And one short application to our time. We're living in harrowing times, in difficult times. Many of us are feeling mortality. God forbid some people in a very literal sense. God should protect everyone. Everyone should have a complete refuah shlema. But we're not seeing eternity. We're seeing ourselves very mortal, very fragile, very vulnerable. But you know something? We're always fragile and vulnerable. Our only source for absolute security and absolute eternity and immortality on earth, in our physical lives, is when we connect to our divine source. And specifically for Chassidim, we connect, for all people, we connect to the Nosi Hador, who's connected to the source itself. What does that mean, connected? Bottle. That we feel completely dedicated to something greater than ourselves. So in a strange way, this time where our comfort zones and our security blankets and most of the material securities and material pillars that we depended on are not really there. It's very obvious. So all we have is to connect to something that is beyond it all. It's telling us, it's a wake-up call. We all didn't want it, but now we have it. It teaches us this lesson precisely now at the beginning of Chodesh Nisan as we go into this month. The connection to what? To the Nossi. We say the Nossi. The Nossi impacts us till this day, impacts our lives, our physical lives, our homes, our tables, our chairs, to the point that we can be connected now to something eternal, and that eternal will impact us physically. So the Eibishter should take help as we enter the month of Nisan, Nisim, month of miracles, the month of Nossi, that connection should actually give us physical health, begashmius and bechumrius, neshamas begufim in the healthiest possible way. And we should be able to march into Pesach, as the Rebbe says here, with our children, with our homes intact, with our families intact, to the Gula Amitis Vashlema. And remember, the Rebbe says, even your personal home becomes the Migdash Ma'at. Who would have interpreted that the way we're interpreting it now? But now that's how we have to apply it to our lives. And it doesn't take away anything. On the contrary, it teaches that it can permeate, it can infuse your personal home, your personal room, where we are right now, each of us in our own way, with the eternal of the eternal, Kiyum Nitzchi. And the Gula Amitis Vashlema, we'll all see it in a revealed way. May it be now, and again, a refuah shlema to all those that need it, and the rest of us may be healthy and protected. The Eibishter should finally end this magefa, this epidemic, pandemic, and we should all march into Pesach into the healthiest possible way and into the Geula Hamitis Vashlema.
This program is brought to you by My Life, Chassidus Applied. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at chassidusapply.com/donate.